Ginny and Georgia somehow has another season. I've watched the other seasons once alone, then once drunk with my friends, and you know, I kinda enjoyed it. I think the writing was cringy and probably too unserious of a show to cover things like self and complex issues between Ginny and Georgia, but now we're watching season 3. I'm gonna call season 3 the season of crash outs because fucking hell did everyone crash the fuck out this season. Obviously, spoilers ahead if you have not watched any of these seasons. I feel like that's obvious, but let's state it anyways. So if you haven't watched the other seasons, season 2 ends with the mayor, Paul, and our main character, Georgia, getting married. And then Georgia suddenly gets arrested because, oh yeah, she's a murderer and murdered a dying man last season. Oh, and, you know, a few more of those men. But anyways, she's killed a few people, moving on. Someone snitched. We know who snitched. Gabrielle snitched. Everyone was questioning that it was a cliffhanger who snitched on her, but we literally all know it was Gabrielle. Like, we saw, Gabriel literally walked in with the, anyways, moving on. I think this season is an interesting premise where we're fighting for the innocence of a woman we literally know isn't innocent. Like, usually in a murder trial type season or like a crime series, we'll kind of also have the side exposition of figuring out who actually murdered them and if they were innocent, guilty, we don't know, but we literally know that Georgia is like a serial killer, so it adds an extra layer that I like. I think it's interesting to have a main character who clearly isn't technically a good person. She murders, steals, she can be seen as selfish, she can lie to get her way, which we see later when she lies to Paul about being pregnant, yet we love and support her because we know what drove her to this and the trauma that made her, and we feel a lot of sympathy for how she came to be herself today. So let's talk about maybe the biggest thing people talked about being Austen's huge age jump. Season 2 takes place and season 3 starts 3 weeks later, and Austen's aged about 8 years. You'll see the actor. And to that I say, oh well, it sucks. Yes, if production didn't take a million years, this wouldn't be an issue, but I don't think recasting would have been the right option either. So I think while it may throw you out for like the first scene or show, especially if you were like watching it consecutively, I think it's easy to get past after the first jump scare. It's just what happens. It's not the actor's fault. Young kids tend to age pretty damn quickly. And at the end of the day, I don't think recasting would have been the right option. I just don't think it would have had the same effect. I didn't personally really have this issue while watching because I actually didn't rewatch season 1 and season 2. I just don't have time for that, do I? So I went straight into season 3. But I imagine if you are consecutively watching all the seasons, it may come as a bit of a jump scare, but whatever. The first episode starts with Abby and Ginny now being closer to each other than Ginny to Maxine. This is probably due to Abby relating partially to Ginny, but also because of Maxine's fixation on Silver, her like new crush we see. Max really holds down the teen drama part for us due to Ginny being heavily traumatized and Marcus dealing with some heavy-hitting depression and some other addict problems we'll talk about later. I do appreciate that if they do need to add teen drama, they're at least making it less centered and palming it off to Max so Ginny can appear as one would actually be if this was real life. While we do see Ginny have some teen drama and we do see more of it sprinkled out, I feel like towards episode 5 it does slow down a bit and then it picks up a little bit. I'm not a big fan of the teen drama in the show, which I will also talk about later, but overall, I do like that it is less centered and less cringy. I don't fully know where to take this video because in all seriousness, so much happened and don't expect a deep explanation of every episode, but we're gonna move on. I found myself getting bored at times, especially with the teen and drama aspect, but I couldn't stop watching, partially because I wanted to make this video, and the other part I wanted to know if Georgia was innocent. There is plenty to talk about characters to deep dive, but I'll save those for later videos. For now, let's just do an overview of this season and its writing and story. So the big plot of this show is when Georgia goes to court for the trial for Tommy Fuller, I believe his name is, Tom Fuller. If I fucked that up, I was too lazy to look it up. Anyways, and my oh my, do I have some things to say about this court scenes, plural. First off, this was actually really interesting, especially when Gabriel, the guy who got her into prison, you're following, yes, he crashes out and calls her a serial killer. This left me curious for like an episode until the defense attorney absolutely destroyed him in cross-examination. It really sucked, especially since Gabriel was so certain that Georgia was a serial killer, yet he absolutely just crumbled during the cross-examination. Like, question after question, he just didn't have an answer, which is super weird, and I don't know, we'll talk about it in a second. But I also found that like the way he was like crashing out and like saying she's a serial killer, blah blah, and the judge was just letting this happen. I don't know anything about law. I've never been in a courtroom, but I would say this felt super unrealistic. I would love for an actual lawyer to dissect the court scenes, because for me at least, I felt taken aback by the sheer amount of no realism. Also, the outfit she wears for court, and while she does look amazing, I just cannot see these happening. She wore a bright pink pantsuit to like the first court hearing, and to me, I don't know about you guys, but if I'm thinking about outfits that really scream I'm innocent, a bright pink look at me pantsuit isn't the most ideal outfit, but what do I know? I'm not a fashion icon like Georgia is. And while these court scenes were important and I did enjoy them, the lack of realism did take me out a bit, but overall, I let it go. You know, I know it wasn't going to be the best, and I just wanted to enjoy the show. The cross-examination of Gabriel really had me questioning everything. I just hated the writing and how quickly they wrote it off. This man investigated her, became obsessed with her, and taking her down just for him to immediately crumble over the pressure definitely felt like plot armor and a cop-out. Like, I feel like this man was obsessed with her past, knew her inside out, knew everything, was like obsessed with taking her down, and I can't see him going to court to take her down as a serial killer without being able to pass a cross-examination. Honestly, the teen drama mixed with this serious stuff did give me a bit of whiplash at times, and I often found myself not caring about half the drama, waiting for more murder fun. But nonetheless, let's go to Maine. Or honestly, let's just talk about that whole fucked up friend group. As someone no longer in school and someone who's almost 20, this group screams toxic, and no, it was never a cute group, but holy fuck is it bad this season. Let's talk about Nora first. Annoying, yes. She gets better as the season goes on, surprisingly. She gets character development out of nowhere, kinda, but oh well, anyways. She is annoying, but I can't really blame the girl. It's all scary. My biggest confusion is why she gets let in the group more than Max. Maybe because she doesn't mind self-destruction and alcoholism, and honestly, speaking of Maxine, my poor girl, I felt so bad for her this season. Like, from the start of episode 9, I think she either has OCD, ADHD, or maybe autism, and she constantly gets called dramatic by her family and friends, and now she can be sporadic and over the top, sure, but a lot of her concerns were valid, especially this season. Like, I get being dramatic maybe the past 2 seasons, but this season, this poor girl was just trying to keep it together while every self-destructing person around her ruined their own damn lives. I appreciate her bringing home Marcus while he was nearing alcohol poisoning, and I think she has a helper mentality. I know this because my boyfriend tends to be like that, and you often take the burden onto yourself, and this can destroy you. You tend to feel a lot and be very caring, and she is definitely like this. Now, this isn't bad. In fact, she is a very good person. Maybe she can be a bit of an overwhelming character, but good intentions. This kind of character will never sit right with the characters who self-destruct, like Marcus, Ginny, Abby, etc. Now, these self-destruct characters also have issues, and you can understand why they are like this, but I did heavily feel for Max, especially since I am now an adult. As a teenager, I could probably sympathize and understand Marcus more, but as an adult, I'm super glad Max is the way she is and trying to look after her friends to the best of her ability. And I can see she's doing her best, and honestly, watching her get left out does really hurt my heart, but I hope she just finds new friends in the next season, because she really does not need to be, you know, you don't have to protect everyone and help everyone, and I understand her helping her brother, but as far as her friends go, sometimes you really do need to just take a step back and let it happen. Moving on to Prez, or Preston. I really hate his character. Like, seriously, every time he's on screen, I don't love to hate him, I just genuinely, like, get him the fuck out of here. So, what does he do? Oh yeah, he calls Abby fat and then Sam later, and then Abby sucks him off after he basically forced her to, and then she opens up to him about her bulimia, and we'll get to her bulimia later, but she says this to him, and he basically just says, well, anyways, I gotta go, and she's like, that's it, and he's like, well, stop doing it, it's probably not good, which, while I hate it, I can't even say it doesn't make sense, because so many guys are like this. Stop dating and hooking up with guys like this, and especially stop being like Sam. Sam is basically a Timu Abby, and it's weird, but girls are definitely like this in real life. So we also have, who's the other one? Ginny, and we'll talk about her in like a separate Pod because she's a bit more of a main character. Meng is honestly just so hard to watch, and I often find just not enjoying scenes of these friend groups no matter how realistic they may seem. I also find I think Nora's actress is good, but I find her character lacks chemistry with the others. I don't know. Every time she's on screen with one of the other characters, I feel really awkward watching it, but that's a whole separate note. So Abby and Sam have bulimia, Prez is just a huge dick, Max has something that apparently makes everyone think she's dramatic, whether it's ADHD, OCD, autism, or maybe she's just a dramatic gal, which is fair enough. Marcus has also, by the way, the reason I think she has any of these is not because she's called dramatic, and I think people with these diagnosis are dramatic. It's because at the start of episode 9 we're in her head and she's very flustered, she's all over the place, and I understand, like, I think like this sometimes too, like a million thoughts and a million times, and when she's leaving the room she has to hit a light switch 3 times until it's the right time, which is a symptom of OCD. Those are the reasons I think she's diagnosed, not because she's called dramatic. I want to make that very fucking clear. But moving on, Marcus has depression and is a raging alcoholic. Ginny probably has a lot more problems along with self, and Georgia has a lot of, problems along with being a murderer, depression, PTSD, and more. Austin for sure is gonna be fucked up, and there's even more characters who have fucked up issues on top of that. Also, none of this feels wrongly portrayed or anything like that. I do think they care about the issues, but there are so many characters and so many different problems and life things going on, and this would feel fine if it was a normal cringe drama that no one really took seriously, and 10 seasons later and 15 random deaths it came to an end. But it's more than that. It has adults, other drama, murder, and just so much packed into it. I just think it's too hard. It can be overwhelming, and sometimes I don't know if they want to be taken seriously or not. And packing on this many problems while it feels realistic, how are you gonna ever wrap it up? Or maybe they're just gonna say, well, life's not wrapped up in a neat bow, and then everyone's just gonna be fucking, oh, whatever. But on a more positive note, I felt like they didn't romanticize any of the issues, like, like Euphoria might, or something like that. And I do think the writing got way better this season, along with the seriousness of this show elevating as well. Moving to the Baker family, I've already touched on Maxine, but I think she is a great sister, and it's such a shame to see her be the only person advocating for Marcus getting more help. I think she was great this season, and Sarah Waisglass, I don't know if I pronounced the actress's name wrong, but she's the actress for Max, and she did fantastic. The actor for Marcus, a personal fave due to his Australianness, Felix Mallard, did fantastic at showing the complex character of Marcus. I love the Baker family, the way Ellen cares for Georgia, and the way they casually do sign language, even cheering at Max's play using sign language. It's great to also see how Marcus struggling is affecting the whole family, and I do think Marcus's situation is good writing and character development, and I do hope at the end when we see him getting driven away, it's not to summer school but rather to rehab. The acting in this season in general has been phenomenal. Now, Antonia Gentry has been a personal favourite with how she plays Ginny this season. Her panic attack scenes truly brought tears to my eyes, and she had me really feel for Ginny, so fantastic work. And the writing being better and also no doubt helped. Brienne Howie was also fantastic, and in scenes with Brienne Howie and Antonia Gentry, it was truly a powerhouse. My personal fave example of this, and probably my favourite scene from this season, had to be when Ginny's poem got released and Ginny goes home breaking down about to self-harm, and Georgia admits it's her fault and to open the door. When they cry, I just lost it. It's great writing and great acting mixed into a amazing scene. Okay, lot to get through. Oh my god, this season was something. Paul. What do I even say? They absolutely fucking character assassinated the fuck out of my man. I loved his character, and he was my fave love interest along with, like, Joe. But oh my days, they ruined him. I am not surprised. They clearly wanted her with Joe, so they did that. But god damn. The scenes of him were truly heartbreaking. Once again, fantastic acting, and they wanted me to hate his character, and I damn do now. I hope his career goes down along with him. I mean the mayor career, not the actor. The actor did great. But it's hard because I do feel like they character assassinated him and this was not him. But I feel like it's better that they went with Paul first, character assassinated him, using his mayor career to make it make sense, and then went to Joe for the final love interest, hopefully the final love interest, because honestly, I think that Paul picking his mayor career does make sense, but it's kind of like, I don't know, it's unfortunate, but whatever. Anyways, moving on to Joe. Jojo, I love him for sure. Want them together. He is a very sweet character, has been from the start. Don't have much to say, but him and Georgia did do the deed. So, you know, if you haven't watched the show, now you know. For you Joe and Georgia stans. I don't know. I don't have much to say about him. He's just a great character. He's a perfect final love interest, if you ask me. Unproblematic king. He also punched Gil. Let's fucking go. Moving on to Zion. Zion pissed me the fuck off this season, but you know, I do understand his character. I think he's a worried dad who didn't know what to do, and I do get it, but just for such an absent father to come back, I don't know. Not much to say, probably a rough thing for him to do, especially knowing it would hurt George's case, as in rough. When I say rough, I mean Zion called Child Protective Services and pulled Ginny and Austin out of their house. I should probably explain that. Zion found out about things, yeah, that's why he pissed me off. For the record, yeah, we following? Are we following? I don't know. Am I following? But yeah, I don't really have much to say. I think he kind of just wanted Ginny and took the opportunity, especially because he's fighting for custody now. But like, at the end of the day, I'm just happy Ginny has two parents, you know? And if Ginny wants to do split custody, goddamn let her. So let's talk about Gil. So to talk about Gil, I am going to have to go to the end and talk about the ending of the show first. So bear with me. Oh, if you're still here, thank you, honestly. So it ends with Georgia getting the not guilty verdict because Austin goes up, and when we think he's gonna snitch on Georgia being the murderer because Austin saw Georgia murder, I know, traumatizing, he actually puts it on his dad Gil, who he has been living with. Now, this, I don't know what to say. From a viewer aspect, and if they were real people, fucking good, Gil abused Georgia and hurt Ginny and damn well should be in jail anyways. But from a writing or like story point, I don't quite understand. I don't mind this actual ending, but I am confused on how we got here. You know what I mean? I'm like, we got here from here. How did we get here? Like, Austin is young and holding this kind of secret from even therapists would be hard, but to go against his dad, who we just saw a scene prior to him defending, just doesn't fully track. I get Gil hurt Ginny, and maybe after all he's a kid who loves his mother, but I would have loved more to see more of this, but I think they didn't add more because it would have ruined the suspense and not knowing who he was gonna stick it, you know, to, and who he was gonna blame for the murder. Does that make sense? So I'm okay with it. Do I fully am on board? I wish they added more scenes, but I understand for like the little plot twist, the little they had to do it like that. So I'm just gonna sit back, you know. I'm gonna sit back and I'm gonna personally pray for Austin because Jesus, that kid, that poor kid, bro. I also don't know how old he's meant to be because in the show now, like, the actor looks at least like 10, 11, 12, 13, I don't know, 14, I don't know. Whereas I don't know how actual old Austin's meant to be because he was way younger. Like, could you imagine Austin from season 1 having to deal with this? Like, he looks older so he feels more mature, but is the age of the first Austin? Does that make sense? Anyway, so we're gonna move on. Also, at the end, Georgia is pregnant, or at least hinted to be pregnant, which is super funny because, if you don't know, we don't know if it's Jo or Paul's, and she literally just lied to Paul earlier about being pregnant using Ginny's positive test, because, you know, Ginny was pregnant with Wolf's baby. I don't know, she aborted it though, not Georgia, we don't know yet, but Ginny aborted it with the support of Margus, not Wolf, because baby daddy, Anyways, the point is, I think it should be Paul's because Jo and Georgia only had sex a few days prior to that, but also we don't know that because I thought the same about that Ginny's baby would have had to be Marcus's baby because in the show timeline, Wolf had only had sex with her. Wolf is a terrible name. Anyways, Wolf and Ginny only had sex a few days prior to her getting pregnant, I thought, but then it was Wolf's baby, Ginny confirmed, so then I was like, oh, they must be spreading out the timeline a lot thicker than we realized, so maybe Jo is the father, and, they had sex a long time before we thought. Does that make sense? No? Okay. And then on top of that, George is becoming a better person. She calls her dad from prison to tell him to fuck off. She goes and apologizes to Paul and gives him the ring back. She kisses Jo, but says, I'm sorry, I need to get my life sorted for my kids first. Admirable. She's becoming a good person. Ginny, on the other hand, is becoming way more like Georgia and fully just basically says, bye-bye, Maxine. We're getting parted. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. And it's a whole thing. So Ginny's becoming Georgia and Georgia's getting better and it's a whole thing, but Austin also did literally witness the right murder, and then it's like the whole thing, and Cynthia is like, oh, we don't know, because Cynthia realized she just stood up for Georgia for no reason because it's not actual footage of Cynthia and Joe having sex. You know what I'm saying. Yeah. You guys understand what I'm saying. Anyways, but you needed to know this to understand Gil. He is well written, a horrible guy, but well written. Easy to snap, but I think he doesn't even give a shit about Austin. I think he just likes the power he holds over Georgia when he has Austin and the fear he installs in her without even being there and abusing her. But I do wish we saw more of Austin and Gil, like, at home. But I think from context and what happened, it was easy enough to pick up. But like I said, I wish we got more around why Austin picked his mum and then suddenly at the end regretted it, hated Ginny and wanted his dad back. But hey, he's a kid, kids do kid shit and he's under a lot of mental stress, so I wouldn't even be surprised if he murdered his whole family in season 4. So anyways, that was confusing probably. Summary though, way better writing this season, not many cringe moments apart from Wolf. Man, he reminded me of Hunter. Speaking of Hunter, we did not talk about Hunter. He's happily in a relationship with Padma. Do you remember Padma? Or is it Padme? Padme's from Star Wars. It's definitely Padma. Pretty sure he's in a good relationship to show, Ginny should have gone with a stable, happy boy, but my god, Ginny being single is better than being with that monstrosity, I'll tell you that much. But, it especially shows because Ginny's sitting there and she's talking about she's talking to Padma. It's Padma, it's definitely Padma. She's talking to Padma about Hunter and stuff, and Padma's like, oh, it's so good to, just have everything be clear, and it's basically rubbing in your face that Hunter's a better boyfriend than Marcus. And then Ginny's like, shit, I should have picked Hunter. But like, no one should have picked Hunter, yikes. But I think it's to show that because Ginny is, a mentally struggling kid, she's of course gonna pick the more moody, interesting teenager. Anyway. I enjoyed this season even with its flaws, and I for sure thought it was going to be way worse than it was, and I was pleasantly surprised and want to know what happens next season. My personal opinion, Ginny is going to turn more like Georgia. It's going to be really cool. I'm excited to see it. I think the acting was truly great this season, and I overall did really enjoy it. I do wish we got more expanded on certain parts, like the serial killer accusation or Austin and Gil, since I'm guessing that's going to be an important part of next season. I also got bored during some of the basic teen drama, especially when it interrupted the Georgia storyline. But, that's kind of all I have to complain about. I hope Max gets treated better next season, and I really liked Ginny's crash outs against Zion, Georgia, basically everyone, Ginny's been treated like shit and no one really liked her, but I really like her this season because she really holds. And for my last final words, I hope Georgia kills Preston next.